everybody, and welcome back to the Rat's Nest. My name is Alicia, and today we are going to be talking about some special rat care. So before all of that, I just want to thank you guys for coming back. I'm really happy to know that I didn't scare you off with my incessant rambling about rats last time. So today we are going to be going over a couple of things here. We're going to be talking about pregnant rats. We're going to be going over senior rats and also disabled rats and how we can better take care of them and just, make their lives better. More so around senior and disabled rats. So let's dive right on in here. And we're going to start off with those moms-to-be. So first things first, with pregnant rats, they need extra protein. Because, they're hard at work here. They're making some jelly belly babies. And they need some extra help. So to be able to give them that extra protein that they need, it can come from anything from eggs to meat to avocados. We've talked about this in the first episode here as well with the eggs. They could be hard boiled, they could be fried, scrambled, anything, as long as they're not raw. With the hard-boiled eggs, they don't need to be shelled, but if you're giving them to a pregnant rat, I would take the shell off just to, make life a little bit easier for her. But if you were to keep it on, it also provides some good enrichment for the rats as well, because they got to figure out how to get in there. With meat, again, just like the eggs, not raw. And with the avocados, they cannot have the skin. Stay away from that skin. They cannot have the pit. They can't have the pit of any fruit, really. But with avocados specifically, if they have that pit, it can kill them. So stay away from that pit. They can only have the flesh of the fruit, which is super yummy. It's super high in fat, super high in protein. If you've got a rat who's underweight and you're trying to pack on those grams, avocado is a great thing to give to them. Now, when mama is getting ready to give birth here, you'll notice, because she's gonna try to start nesting. She's gonna build up that area where she plans on giving birth. So you want to. So first of all, if possible, you're gonna want to separate her. That way, if you have other rats in the cage, which you should, but if you have other rats in the cage, they're not going to be able to interfere or stress mama out or anything like that. So for something like this, a bin cage or one of those little like hamster cages from the pet store, something with small bar spacing so that the babies can't get out once they can start to roam around on their own. You want it to be big enough, though, that mama is going to have enough room to, be herself and to be able to breathe and be able to get away from the babies if she needs to, because, we all need a break from them every once in a while. There's no denying that. So, but please remember that is not a permanent housing solution for any animal, those little cages at the pet store. It's only for, quarantine, a hospital cage, transport cage, or for mama to give birth. Now, bin cages, so you can get like a tote from Walmart or Target or wherever, whether it's clear, whether it's not, it doesn't really matter. Get some holes in there so that, you can get that circulation and fill it up with bedding. They're really good for birthing cages, for nurseries. But again, I personally would not recommend it as a permanent housing solution. Stick with your large DCNs that have all of that air circulation so that there's no ammonia buildup or anything. This is only for a nursery. So once you have mama in her separate cage, if you're able to do that, give her lots of bedding so that she's able to nest. So extra pieces of fleece if you do some sewing, or you could even put in some old t-shirts or as long as it's not like something like a terry cloth that has lots of threads that can be pulled out, because that can get wrapped around. It can get wrapped around mama's feet or tail. It can get wrapped around the babies, and that can do some damage there. But you also want to stay away from anything like tissue paper, like Kleenexes or toilet paper or anything like that, because when the babies are born, they're wet. They're from the placentas and whatnot. And so that will stick to the babies, and there's a potential for suffocation. And, obviously you don't want to hurt the little jelly belly babies, especially right after they're born, so stay away from anything that can stick to them, and try to stick with, you could even get those dog blankets at the dollar store. They're nice and cheap, and, you can just cut them up, and there you go. You got little rat blankets. They also make for great, just a little bit of a tangent here, they make for great hammocks. If you cut out like a large rectangle or whatever, and then cut some notches in the corners, you can tie them up into the bars at the top of your cage. Excellent hammock. I did that with Willow, and she loved it so much. Now coming back to the babies here, if you can, you want to handle them from a very young age. So with our rats, when we were very new to rats, my sister decided that she wanted to get some. So they went to the pet store, and they got Templeton, and they got Peter. And we were told that Templeton was a boy, and we didn't know enough to be able to check for ourselves. So we just took the pet store's words for it, and Templeton was not a boy. So we had a couple of oops litters, and we were very lucky because Templeton trusted my sister a lot. And so when we found out that Templeton was pregnant and she had her babies, my sister was able to open the cage and just reach right on in and hold the babies almost immediately after they were born, which is huge. Like, that requires such a huge amount of trust on your rat's part. So if you try to handle those babies from day one, which I wouldn't recommend from day one, but shortly after birth, don't be surprised if she gets kind of nippy, and she tries to defend her babies. Don't be surprised. Respect her boundaries, because you still want to have that trust. But you definitely still want to try your best to handle them from a young age, so that they're well socialized, so that whether you decide to keep them or if you adopt them out, they're gonna make good pets, So, and you want to make sure that you're able to sex them and separate them by the 5-week mark, because once baby rats reach the age of 5 weeks, they become sexually mature, and they will breed. They will interbreed. Rats are notorious for that. You thought that rabbits were bad. Clearly, you have not had to deal with baby rats. So we had to learn this the hard way. We had a couple of oops litters. I think 3 total. The last one was our fault, because we had tried to sex and separate the males from the females, and we put all of the females into the main cage, and we put the males into a separate cage with Peter. And turns out that one of the babies we didn't sex correctly, and he bred with Templeton, and we had another oops litter. And unfortunately, because it was technically inbreeding, we had one of the babies that was born with one eye. I kept him, and his name was Jix. Sadly, he passed away very young when I tried to bring him in to get fixed. But oh man, he was such a sweetie. But Charlie was the little boy who we missexed. He was such a sweetie too, but it really just goes to show how important it is that you do it correctly. Now, with sexing rats, it can be very difficult to do. when they're first born, because they're still developing everything, and it can be tricky. But as they get older, it's a lot easier to tell. The easiest way to tell if a rat is a male or female is, aside from balls, is look for the nipples. If you can see nipples lining the belly, it is 99% of the time a female. Male rats don't have nipples. If they do, it's a very rare anomaly. So look for the nipples. If you can't see nipples and the balls haven't dropped yet, you want to look near the genital area. So males will have two openings. They will have their urethra, where they urinate from, and they'll have their anus. And they'll have a fairly large space between the two, which is where the testicles would be. And trust me, when the balls drop, you'll notice that they are very large. They look like jetpacks. And then on a female, they have three openings. So they have their urethra, where they urinate from. They've got their vaginal opening, which is where they give birth from. And then they have their anus, and they're all very close together. So that is, if there's no testicles and you can't see any nipples, that's basically the only way to be able to sex the rats. If you're having a difficult time sexing them, you can always bring them into, say, a pet store and see if there's anybody there who's experienced enough with rats to be able to help you. If not, if you're on Facebook, you can go ahead and join the Rat Fan Club group. Excellent group, and I highly recommend it. I'm part of that group, and you can post up pictures of your rats, and we'll help you figure it out. No problems, Another great group is Rats and Mice Are Awesome. Another group that I'm part of. Currently, they are closed just because of Facebook's weird thing happening. But once they're open back up, I highly recommend going and joining. If not for, the advice and the help that you can get sexing your rats, or, medical advice or anything like that, then, just for the cute rat pictures, because, oh man, they are 10 out of 10. They are great. I love them. So, I also posted up recently pictures on my Instagram at RatPotatoez with a Z at the end, and that will it's a diagram essentially. It shows a 2-day male and female rat and 4-week-old male and female rats, and it'll show you the difference, and it'll show you how to tell what the sex is. And another site here that has an excellent diagram is www.afrma.org, and all you have to do there is you go and you click on info pages at the top there, scroll down to Beginner's Corner, and there's an article called Missing Fur Sexing Rats, and that'll tell you everything you need to know. This site also has everything you need to know, period, about rats and mice. It's called the American Fancy Rat and Mouse Association, and it has all the information you could ever dream of having, really. Like, it is an excellent site. So if you ever want to do some reading up, that's where you need to go. That's where everything is. Now, back to Momma here. Make sure that she also has constant access to food and water, because she needs to be able to keep her energy up, because she's hard at work there. Now, once the babies are a little bit older, like 2-3 weeks even, you should definitely be able to hold them if she hasn't let you before then. And, again, I highly recommend it. Make sure that they are well socialized. Now, I'm going to get really dark and gloomy here for just a moment. Now, this doesn't happen often, but Mama Rat might cull her babies. She might eat them, essentially. This is something that all rodents do. If they feel that their young are threatened, or if they are just not in a position to be able to care for their pets. No, if they're not in a position to be able to care for the babies. So make sure that everything is as stress-free for mama as possible when she has her babies, because I mean that's you don't want that to happen, you know? So but, all in all, Mama Rat, she will know what she's doing. Even if it's her first litter, it's just, an instinct. Rats know. People know. Everybody knows. It's just something that kicks in. So don't worry about it. She knows what to do. If, however, she decides that she doesn't want to care for or feed for one or even all of her babies, you are able to hand rear them yourself. It's very difficult, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this, but unless you are very experienced in this kind of thing, it is very likely that the babies will sadly die. But it's still a possibility if you're not able to get them to a rescue, or if you don't know somebody else who has a mama rat who's still lactating or who has a litter of her own. Sometimes mama rats will adopt in babies from other litters. So if you decide that you want to try to hand rear them yourself, the easiest way that I'm aware of anyway is using kitten milk and a paintbrush, because they can't eat solid foods, and they suckle. So you just dip that fine paintbrush into the kitten milk, and then they can suckle the milk from the bristles. You should also know too that mama rat will lick their genital area and their anus to try to encourage them to pee and poop on their own. So you don't lick them, but you want to take a soft damp cloth or a paper towel or something, as long as it's soft, and you just wipe them, and that will encourage them to pee on their own. So just different things to keep in mind if that happens to be something that you need to do. All right, so now we're going to move away from the doom and the gloom, and we're going to be happy again, all right? So we're going to move on here to senior rats and disabled rats. Now, before I move on here, I just want to point out that I am not a vet, so any medical advice that I may say here, please take it with a grain of salt. This is based purely off of my research and my own personal experiences. If you have any questions or anything, I mean, I can answer them to the best of my abilities. I'm always happy to help. I'm more than happy to help. But if it's super serious and you're very concerned, I recommend just bringing them to your vet if at all possible. So with that said, let's move on here. Let's have a great time, guys. So senior rats, just like us, just like dogs, just like cats, just like literally any other animal out there, they can have some difficulties as they get older, and they need our help, So that's why we're here. That's why we're here. So naturally, most of our cages, they're tall. They've got lots of places to climb, lots of places to hide, things like that, which is great. But unfortunately, with senior rats and rats who may develop disabilities, it's not as great for them. Now, if this is the case, then you want to be able to add in more ledges, more flat spaces and areas in the cage where they'll be able to be. Ramps as well, and ramps are much better than say ladders, because there's holes. But lots and lots of ramps to help them have access to the places in the cage where they want to be. If need be as well, if you have. So in my cage, the food and the water is on the second level. So if you have that kind of set up in your cage as well, and your rat isn't able to get to that area where the food and the water is, make it accessible. Whether that means that you move the food and the water, or you add in a whole new food and water area into the cage at the bottom where they can reach it. You do what you got to do to be able to help them be happy and comfortable. So, for example, Baby and Oliver. Some of you guys might be familiar with them. Baby was, I talked about her too, actually, in the previous episode here. She was such a sweetie. I adopted her from my other mother, and she was already getting up there in age when I took her in. But towards the end of her years here, she developed a pituitary tumor, which was absolutely heartbreaking to see. She was such an eater, and by the end of it, she couldn't hold food. She couldn't eat solid foods. I had to hand feed her applesauce, which I was happy to do because I loved her so much, but it was still hard. So before she got to that point, she was having a hard time even climbing up the ramps in the cage. So I had moved the food bowl to the bottom, and I added in another water bottle so that she could come out of her box and she could go and drink, and she could go and eat if she wanted to, and then she could go back and lie down for a little bit, So, and it was the same thing with Oliver, my sister's hairless rat, as some of you may remember. She also developed a pituitary tumor shortly after Baby passed. And she declined very quickly. Again, very, very heartbreaking. And she was having a hard time holding her food. She was having a hard time eating it. She was holding her food with her elbows almost. And so again, I moved the food bowl down for her, and she wasn't able to get into the corner hammock that I had in the cage at the time, and she really, really wanted in. So I moved the house because there's a plastic house in the cage. I moved that house underneath the hammock so that she could get onto the house and then climb into the hammock from there, which helped a lot. And then once she wasn't able to do that anymore, I moved her into the hospital cage, and she lived in there for a little bit, and she lived with me in my bedroom, so that I could keep a close eye on her, and she spent lots and lots of time with me, and we took a lot of naps in my bed. It was, as sad as it was pretty great. So yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do. Now, going off of that, some senior rats and also disabled rats, they require aid eating. As I've mentioned here with Baby and Oliver, sometimes they can't eat the normal foods that you may put out for the rest of your rats. Like for example, I feed them oxbow, which is a hard, it's a hard food. It's like crunch, crunch. Some rats may not be able to eat that. They can only eat the softer foods. So to make up for that, you could take that oxbow and you could put it in some applesauce and, let it soften up a little bit, or just, spoon feed them some applesauce or baby food or something like that. It's, especially with baby food, it has the nutrients that they need. It's got everything in there, and it's really nice to watch them lick it up. It's really cute, actually. But, just different things that you can do to help make sure that they can still eat. Another soft food treat kind of thing is, those little baby puffs. They're literally just called baby puffs. I think they're by Gerber, but they look like little stars. And, you get banana flavor, you get whatever, blueberry flavored, and they're just super yummy for the rats. They're they taste pretty bland. I decided to try one once, but I mean, the girls love them, so who am I to deny them the nice things in this life, you know? So different things that you might come across here as well. We're gonna talk specifically about disabled rats really quick. Rats, I don't know how many of you guys know this, but rats who have red eyes actually have very poor vision. Now, rats in general don't have very good eyesight. They don't really depend on it quite as much as they would depend on, say, their hearing or their sense of smell. But rats who have red eyes have just such bad vision. So for this reason, if you have a red-eyed rat, you might see them kind of standing still and just kind of swaying side to side a little bit, which is very normal. That's just them trying to get a sense of what is around them. It's just them trying to see. But if you see that your rat is suddenly, like walking in circles consistently, or if they try to walk in a straight line but they kind of curve around and they're still just walking in circles, that is an issue. That is a neurological issue. You want to get them into the vet right away. So some other things that you may come across with rats, the obvious physical deformities kind of things. So like missing limbs, missing paws. Some rats get into accidents and so they miss some of their tails, or are even, born with only half of their tail or one eye or something like that. Typically vision issues don't really throw them off too much. I mean, if they're completely blind, then you want to try to put some things in place for them. High ledges, keep that out. Make sure that you don't, change up the layout of the cage too much. Otherwise, it's really going to screw with, like their mental image of what they have in the cage. So if you move everything around, then they're going to be like, oh, this one's here. No, now it's there. And it's just, you don't want to do that. So it's just, different things that you may come across with a disabled rat. Oh, I said that weirdly. I did not mean for that to sound like a bad thing. I'm sorry. But, it's just the different things. Other issues that you may come across with senior rats as well are things like hind leg degeneration, tumors, again, blindness as they age. Tumors will unfortunately always be an issue with rats. That's something that they're pretty commonly known for, whether it's a pituitary tumor, a mammary tumor, any kind of tumor or abscess. They're very common in rats, and there's not really a lot that you can do to prevent them. Although if you have, male or female, if you have a rat, if you get it fixed or spayed, that can typically help to reduce some specific kinds of tumors. And in males too, specifically, it can help with any hormonal aggression as they hit puberty, because all the testosterone, it's not always great for their brains. So, so the neutering and the spaying, it can help with certain kinds of tumors, but vets won't always do this, specifically in females, to spay a female rat, because rats are so small and they have such finicky respiratory systems, and to spay a rat is a pretty invasive procedure. So some vets will be very hesitant to do it unless it's absolutely necessary. But absolutely neuter your boys if you can, and if you have to, of course, because you don't necessarily want to put them through that unnecessary stress. Hind leg degeneration. It's something that typically only happens in older rats. As anything gets older, our cells, they begin to break down. That's what getting older is the fact that we have more damaged cells than healthy cells, and our bodies aren't able to regenerate the healthy cells as quickly anymore. That's what it is. And so that it's a very common cause of hind leg degeneration. Did I say that right? Common cause? I'm not sure, but I really hope that you guys get what I meant. So what it is when a senior rat slowly loses the ability to use their back legs. That's what that means. Sometimes it can come back. I've heard of this happening when a senior rat loses the ability to use their back legs, and then suddenly 3 days later they're fine. But as a general rule, no, that doesn't happen. They lose the function, and then that's it. Sometimes it's just weaker. Sometimes they can still use them, but they can't like hop around, they can't climb, they can't do things that a normal young rat can do anymore. So a pretty common link between hind leg degeneration and rats aging is arthritis. Actually, arthritis is very common in rats. Obviously, just as it is with us, we get older, our joints decide, we're not going to function properly anymore, and then it happens. So it's the same thing in rats. So with that, arthritis is a fairly common link between the rat and the hind leg degeneration, and so if your rat happens to develop this, I would definitely recommend bringing them into the vet if possible, because if it is related to arthritis, sometimes you can get, the vet will prescribe, I think it's Metacam, and that will help to keep the symptoms of the arthritis, the pain from the arthritis, under control, so that your rat is feeling a little bit better. And sometimes it can also help to improve the function of the back legs. Keep in mind too that Metacam it's very harsh on the kidneys. So if you ever get prescribed Metacam or any medication really, you want to really stay on top of the dosage that is prescribed, because you don't want to do any unnecessary damage, because it's with rats being prey animals, they don't always let on that they're in pain or they're not feeling well unless they think that they're, absolutely at the end of the line and there's nothing else, So you definitely be very careful about that. And medicines can also be very, very bitter. So if you can, mix it up with something. Mix it with yogurt or applesauce or honey or, anything to mask that flavor. Yogurt might sometimes be a no-go because there are some links between yogurt and canceling out the effect of the medicine. Essentially, it's kind of like charcoal and medications. So it's around Halloween, so they're all coming out with spooky foods, like the black ice cream and black burgers, and that's all I can really think of off the top of my head. But they put activated charcoal in the foods, and it's actually it's advised that you, especially if you take medications, whether it's for anxiety, depression, heart issues, any kind of medication whatsoever, it's advised that you just not eat activated charcoal, whether it's in food or as a pill or anything, because it can actually cancel out your medications. And which, depending on what you're taking meds for, that could be potentially very dangerous. So just a warning for you guys in case you didn't know. Kind of going off topic a little bit here, but apparently, like I said, there may be some links between dairy products canceling out medications in rats. So just keep that in mind. If you're concerned about it, talk to your vet. Like I said earlier, I am not a vet, so take some of this stuff here with a grain of salt. Always confirm it with your veterinarian. They will know so much more than I do. Now, moving on a little bit here, we are going to come back to that a little bit later, but some, just like people, some older rats can be really stubborn, okay? And they may be completely outright refusing to acknowledge the fact that they are older, especially if they have younger cage mates who are still able to, like bounce around and be happy and jumpy and climb and just be completely reckless and foolhardy, because we all know how intelligent rats are supposed to be compared to how intelligent they actually are. So, keeping that in mind, it's often, those of us who keep rats, it's often practice for us to remove said I can't talk now. What is going on? To remove said elderly rat from the cage and essentially putting them into like a ratty retirement home, So this would be a single story cage. So long, lots of room for them to be able to play, and well, not necessarily play, but still able to be a rat, but there's no place for the rat to fall and get injured, or anything like that. It's really important, especially for elderly rats, that ledges are taken out of the equation. Willow, a lot of you are familiar with who she is. Those of you who have been with RatPotatoez from the very beginning, she was the inspiration behind all of this. Actually, she's the reason why we're here. She passed away. Oh, how old was she? I think she was 2.5-ish. She was almost 3 years old, so she was getting a little bit up there, and she was starting to slow down a little bit, but she was having some balance issues, I remember, and I took a trip to go and visit my boyfriend in California for Christmas, and 2 days before Christmas, my dad messaged me on Facebook, and he's like, "Hey, Willow's hurt. She's not doing so well." And she passed away about an hour later. She fell in her cage, unfortunately. Sorry, there was no doom and gloom warning here. I didn't expect for us to go into this, but yeah, she fell in her cage. I suspect that she must have broken her back, I think, because when I was talking to him, he mentioned that she wasn't able to move her back legs anymore, and she was doing just fine the day before. Yeah, so it's very important that ledges are taken out of the equation if there are any balance issues, and if you're going on a trip or something, you want to be on the safe side, so definitely have that single story retirement cage if possible. If not, then take out those ledges, make everything accessible on the bottom of the cage, make everything nice and comfy cozy at the bottom. Willow was very, very stubborn. She would never have gone for that, so she would have had to have been in a single story cage no matter what, if I had known about that at the time. But unfortunately I didn't, but we live and learn, right? So that's all we can do is to learn and be better from our mistakes, Yeah, anyway, moving on. So like I said, if a retirement cage isn't an option, I completely understand, whether it's money, whether it's you simply can't find a cage or you just don't have the space. I totally get it. Just add in those ramps, just add in, make sure everything is accessible, add in those comfy, cozy things on the bottom, and watch them like a hawk. Seriously, just keep an eye on them. And also, use the, if you don't use it, you'll lose it rule. That's very important. So, like, because cages can be pretty crowded sometimes, and if they aren't enjoying an aspect of their cage, take it out. It makes it a little less crowded, a little less for them to, fall and hurt themselves on. Now, kind of going back to senior rats and the medications and everything, CBD oil can be used to help rats a lot, especially if they have tumors, if they have chronic pain, anxiety, anything like that. Just a few drops in their water, or you could put it in their food. You could put a drop on their treats. Now, CBD oil it's kind of like, essential oils or coconut oil or, even crystals. There's no guarantee that it's going to work. And a lot of people find it kind of controversial, because some people are like, oh, well, everything. Some people get cranky about it. But a lot of other people swear by it. I've read of people who have had rats, who have had tumors that grew very fast, and so they started on the CBD oil, and the tumors shrank, and sometimes even just all but completely disappeared, And then as soon as they had to stop because of some medication, the tumors came back, So, and it's even been proven in humans, those of us who have ADHD or anxiety or depression or anything like that, CBD oil helps. If you're going to buy it and use it for your rats, make sure that there is no THC in it, because that's the point here is not to get your rats high. It's to, it's to help calm them down. It's to help relieve that pain, and also just a heads up, it's not cheap. I bought a small-ish bottle. I have it right here. 1 second. This bottle is 40 milligrams. Yeah, 40 milligram bottle, and it was about $100 Canadian. So, if you do decide to go out and get some CBD oil, it's going to cost you, unfortunately, and you want to get it from. I got it from a local business here called Indigenous Bloom. So you want to get it from someplace that knows what they're doing. Don't go and order it off of Amazon, for example. I honestly wouldn't trust Amazon with something like this. So make sure you're getting it from a reliable source. Again, take this stuff with a grain of salt. Some people have used this and have had remarkable results. Other people just they haven't, So I guess it also kind of depends on the rat. I guess I'm not 100% sure how this kind of thing works, but and if you're using CBD oil and you get prescribed a medication for your rat, double check with the vet, because sometimes there are some medications that can have different unintended effects with the CBD oil. Baytril, I believe, is okay, and so is oh no, I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, I don't have it around here. But there's another one I think that is okay. But again, double check. I'm not a vet. Please take any potential vet advice from me with a grain of salt. Double check, always, to be on the safe side. I don't want anything happening to your babies because I accidentally messed something up here. So always be on the safe side. Yeah. And we have a little bit more time here, so let's talk about hairless rats here quickly too. Let's talk about those naked potatoes. Some of you who've been here long enough know just how passionate I am about hairless rats. These guys are everything to me. I love these little sacks of wrinkles. I love them so much. But most of the blog is honestly based around hairless rats. This is my first time without a hairless rat in so long, and I am so sad. I love Chic and Impa and Science and One so much, but guys, I need a hairless rat so bad. I need those little wrinkly butts. I love them. Now, the care for a hairless rat doesn't really differ that much from a normal furred rat. But, because it does a little bit. So, for example, a hairless rat, they're a lot more prone to having dry skin than a furred rat. So, having oil rubs on them done every once in a while, whether you're using coconut oil or olive oil or even CBD oil, really. Any kind of oil is really good to just, just rub them down, give them that little bath to keep that moisture in their skin. They're not necessarily going to like it, and they're probably going to lick it all off, which is why I'm saying, oils like olive or coconut, those are best, because if they ingest it, it's no big deal whatsoever. Coconut oil is a great little treat for them too. Every once in a while, just a little bit, like maybe the size of a chocolate chip. It's pretty great for them. It helps to oil up them insides too. So, give them that little oil bath every once in a while, and that dry skin shouldn't be an issue. Because they don't have fur too, they lack that natural barrier against, scratches and things. So, if you have a hairless rat and you see that they're covered in scratches, don't be alarmed. They're okay. As long as it's not like a deep gashing wound, that is a totally different story. You should probably take them into the vet to have it cleaned. If you're not able to, clean it with saline and keep an eye on it. Make sure it stays clean and dry. As long as it's not a gashing wound, they'll be fine. Rats heal very quickly. It's kind of shocking, actually. But, so they're very prone to getting all scratched up because they're rats. They play, they wrestle, they tussle about. So, it happens. Doesn't it, Chic? Chic is kind of poking her little head out. She is guilty as charged when it comes to play fighting. Oh my goodness, you have no idea. Every single time I hear a lad squeak in that cage and I look to see what's going on, it's Chic cornering somebody. I don't know what her problem is. Granted, she is still pretty young. She's about a year old. So she's still very playful. She's still very jumpy. But, she's got red eyes too, so naturally she's very jumpy, but she's a little troublemaker. Anyway, hairless rats, because they're hairless as well, they require a little bit more effort to keep warm. So, because we're coming into the colder months here, if you are in a place where you don't have a whole lot of heat, for example, not last year, but the year before, I was living in my dad's basement with Willow, and it's a basement. It gets cold. So I actually had a heat lamp, and I would set it up for her above the cage, so that if she wanted to, she could go and she could keep warm. I had it set up too for a little bit with with Oliver and Cortana, and oh my goodness, they loved it. I have some pictures up on my Instagram of them cuddling on a box under the heat lamp. It's so cute. You have to see them. So heat lamp is not a bad idea. If you're able to get like a heating pad too, and you're able to do it safely, please don't put the heat pad directly into the cage, because rats, they're rodents. They have a tendency to chew. So if they chew into that heating pad, that's not going to be a good thing for your poor little baby there. So if you have a way to be able to put it safely underneath the cage to still be able to get that heat in there, to have a warm place for them to lie, that's great. I recommend it. If not, have a heating lamp. Make sure that it's set up in a way that they'll learn pretty quickly if they try to touch the bars with the heat lamp on, but try to have it secured so that, minimal damage can happen, if anything. Lots and lots and lots of blankets as well are very good. Like I mentioned earlier, you can get a dog blanket at the dollar store for super cheap and just cut it up, throw the blankets in there, you're good to go. of course, you'll have to wash them lots because rats pee, and they don't always like to leave their bed when they pee. Trust me, I know. So do my hammocks. It's really gross. But yeah, lots of blankets, especially for hairless rats. Even if it's, summer months and you have a hairless rat, lots of blankets so that they have that soft bedding. You can also get, I sell little baggies of scraps from my sewing projects for the hammock. So, if you ever decide to put in an order for a nice, comfy, cozy hammock, you can also pick up some nice blanket scraps for $2 a bag. So, just casually putting that out there, just so you guys know. So with all of that, in the summer months, some of us, we don't always have a working air conditioner, and we need to be able to keep our babies cool. So what I did this summer is I actually got a large ceramic tile, and I put that in the cage, and I had, I don't know, 4 or 5 different water bottles in my freezer at all times, and I would rotate them throughout the cage. Put the frozen water bottles into a sock first, though, so that they're not coming in direct contact with it, especially if you have a hairless, because it can hurt them. So put frozen water bottle on top of the cage, and then the cool air will fall over them. Put a frozen water bottle in a sock into the cage, and then they can cuddle on it on the cold ceramic tile, and that'll keep them cool. You can also put in frozen fruits and vegetables in there. I think I mentioned in the last episode that you can put some frozen fruit in an ice cube tray. You could even put water in there and make frozen fruit ice cubes. Give that to them as a nice summer treat. Just different ways to keep your babes cool in the summer, because we all know how uncomfortable it is. And rats can't sweat. So, with that said, it gets to be a little much sometimes, especially with how hot our summers have been recently. So, just different things to keep in mind. Now, getting back on topic here with hairless rats. Hairless rats, because they don't have that fur as well, they have to spend a lot more energy to keep warm. So you want to give them a higher calorie diet if possible, so give them more meats, more fruits, more whatever, along with their normal food. Of course, everybody's going to get it, because rats don't always know how to share, which is ridiculous. But, as long as they have that food accessible to them. So just, some little tips and tricks for how to take care of your naked fuzzbutts, because they are honestly just the sweetest little things. Their little faces. Oh my goodness. I miss my hairless rats so much. I've only had 2, and I can't get enough of them. They're surprisingly soft, considering they have no fur. It's amazing. It's remarkable. And they're just, I love their little tummies. Okay. Any rat tummy, really. Tummies. They're so cute. Rat tummies, rat butts, rat faces. Yeah, I love them so much. In case you couldn't tell with me rambling on like this. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop right there. So moving on from this, so I have started being able to upload these episodes to YouTube. So this episode will be up pretty soon. As soon as I'm done editing and getting everything together, it's going to be up on YouTube. It's going to be up on SoundCloud. I'm trying to work out some issues with SoundCloud and my RSS feed. It's just a bunch of technical stuff that I don't understand, because I am not a technical person. So once I get that fixed up, these podcasts will also be available on Spotify. They'll be available hopefully on iTunes. They'll be available on Google Play. So if you have like a Google Home or whatever, you'll be able to listen to me ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble on there. I'm going to look into a couple of other podcast specific sites pretty soon. So as soon as I can get that RSS feed up and working, then, we're going to take over the world with rats. So prepare yourself for that. It's going to be great. It's going to be a party. Get the popcorn, get the rat treats. We're going to town. In the meantime, don't forget to follow me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Snapchat. I'm on Tumblr. All of those are at RatPotatoez. That is spelled RatPotatoez. And I'm also on Instagram with my store, which is RatPotatoes_store. And on there, I have all of my my stock for my hammocks, and we can get your cage decked out and your rat super comfortable in no time. So until next time, I think that's about it. Oh, next episode, I'm going to be having our very first guest, and we're going to be talking about hamsters. So keep your ears peeled for that one. We're going to be busting some myths, I guess, about hamsters and hamster care, and we're just going to be trying to dispel some of those misconceptions about them as pets, because hamsters, much like rats and mice and everything, are also considered to be very easy and disposable pets, and that is just not true. So we're gonna be talking about that, and she might be bringing in her dysfunctional hamster named Hedgehog. So watch out for that, and I'll see you guys I will see you guys in the next episode. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, a wonderful week, wonderful day, night, whatever it may be when you're listening to this. Have a great one. See you guys.